World food embeddings. With greater famines and droughts around the world, and the ever-changing state of our climate, food scarcity is a very real and complex problem that faces a significant portion of the world's population. Machine learning applications with Earth observation data are limited by the availability of training labels. Training labels are typically spatio-temporal and correspond to events like forest fires or oil spills. Objects like ships, buildings or farms, or environmental indicators of interest such as vegetation health, crop yield or biodiversity markers. We asked the question, can we develop general-purpose embeddings with time series of satellite imagery to build value-adding applications in support of the UN World Food Programme? It is, with this context, I'd like very much to introduce the World Food Embeddings team.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Francisco, and I'm very happy to be here as part of the World Food Embeddings team. First, let me introduce the team members. Our team leads are Freddy and Lucas. Our research advisors are Michael and Ian, and the researchers, Dolores, Raul, Julia, and myself. First, let me introduce you in the context of the problem. Right now, current reports say that over than 800 million people are suffering from food insecurity. And this has been worsened by climate extremes and the economic instability. So the World Food Programme and others are addressing these needs. And we have a vast amount of satellite imagery that has useful information that can help to address these problems. So the context is that from the habitable land, 50% is used for agriculture, and 82% of the supply of the calorie supply, it comes from the plants. So, but also using the agriculture change the lands. So the land use is changing, and when the land use change, it also affects the climate. So now the sequester of carbon, it is changing, and it is affecting the climate change. And this leads to increasing floods and droughts that are affecting the crops. So how can the artificial intelligence help to address these problems? Sorry, I'm having problems with the slides. So there it goes. So how can artificial intelligence help to address these problems? Well, we can create a map of the world by studying the crops from satellite imagery, but we need labels for that. For example, we need to know where the crops are, if there is maize or wheat, or if there is a crop or there is not a crop. And we have labels, but those labels are only in the global north. And we want to go at a global scale. We want to use models that can work at a global scale. And how can we do that without the labels? Well, that's a really hard problem to solve, because to have these labels, we have to go to the fields to annotate them. We cannot just look at a satellite image and say, okay, here there is some corn or some wheat. We have to go to the fields, and that's really costly. And there is no efficient and accurate automatic method to do that. So for example, in this image, can you see what is in here? It's really difficult. And not only that, Also, the global agricultural land, it's like 50 million kilometers square. So that's really big. And to store 1 single kilometer square, it takes like 5 gigabytes data. So that's a really huge amount of data. And the data extraction alone takes like weeks. And we need a lot of computer power to do that. So now I'm going to leave the floor to Julia, that she will explain more about how we use the satellite imagery to address these problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fran. So as we just heard, we have an abundance of satellite imagery available. Our aims as a team, therefore, were to extract meaningful crop information based on satellite imagery with few or even no labels available. But how do we train our machine learning models without labels? We teach them the concept of similarity and contrast. Here you can see the same image twice. Within training, we expect our model to understand the similarity between those two pictures. We call this a positive pair, the raw image and the same image on the right, but slightly different. Here you can see a negative pair. Here we expect the model to understand the difference between those two images. And we can make this task increasingly difficult. Here you can see the same image, but cropped and in a different color. Through seeing many similar images and different images, our model can form an abstract understanding, and it learns to group the images through identifying the features that form a similar group. This way, we can create our own labels without having to rely on labels beforehand. I will now hand over to my colleague Raul, who will speak about the discoveries we made.
Thank you very much, Julia. Well, I want to show right now very briefly what are the things that we can discover with our models, and more importantly, who is the final user who may benefit from our models. So to jump straight into what we want to show, here we have a satellite image. This satellite image is from a single location. It looks like a mosaic because this is taken by as different satellite orbits, lightning conditions, and so on. It's a mosaic of different images in different times. But here you can see that there is a continuity, so it's actually the same physical place. There is a continuity of the roads, the fields, and so on. And this, it is what our models would output, starting from these images as input. You can see that there are patterns clearly emerging, there are colors, there are geometries of fields, there are many different things that are appearing here. How do we interpret these things? How do we make sense of these patterns? There are two things that are key to understand in this sense. One of them, it is that, well, we are using satellite Sentinel-2 data. Sentinel-2 is one of ESA's optical satellites. And the satellites are working on 11 bands. Usually the human eye can only see 3 bands, red, green, blue. And we are, just by the nature of the satellite, we are also being able to see details that normally a human eye would not be able to see. But more important than that, our models are capturing the time evolution of what we are looking at. So for instance, things having similar colors doesn't necessarily mean that they are visually similar, but it really means that they may have had a similar time evolution, like crops have a cycle, so maybe they have been harvested similarly, or they have been planted similarly, and so on. So this is what we are extracting from the actual data. We have developed a user interface for users to be able to interact with this knowledge. This is something that we have developed as part of our project to all the complexity, all the models, the data, and so on, to make it simple for users to be able to interact with it. So in this tool, as you can see, we can select a region of interest. We can zoom, of course. We can see the actual satellite data. This is the Sentinel-2 satellite data. This is, of course, RGB. One single 3 bands, one single point in time, and we can see little by little that our model is being overlaid. The results of our model are being overlaid on our on the satellite imagery. And then we can have a user. It could be like a farmer, it could be a policymaker, it could be a researcher that is saying, well, this region here, it looks weird because it should look like the regions around, it has the same properties. Why is it different in terms of time evolution and everything? So it clicks on the region, and of course we get like a digital signature of the region so that we can compare with other places, and they can say, well, this anomaly that I have found, where is located in my region, in my country? And here what you can see, it's very subtle. You see that there are many different points that have emerged. Those are places that are similar to what we have seen in terms of this digital signature that our model, this embedding that our model is producing. Yeah. So we expect that there may be many different kinds of situations and applications of what we are doing. We are, of course, still discovering these issues. And I'm going to hand on now to Dolores, who is going to be summarizing our results. Let me just, yeah.
Thank you, Raul. So as a summary of our work, we have built tools that allow to extract terabytes of Sentinel-2 images in minutes, creating new data sets of temporal images to enable new research. Also, as Raul was explaining, the self-supervised models we have trained allow to extract semantic information from these unlabeled images. And with this information, we can query where the crops are likely to be, helping the WFP optimize their data acquisition for crops. Using our models as a base to create crop maps where it wasn't possible before will help fight fear insecurity, decrease soil degradation, and create focused regional campaigns to support small landowners in less developed countries. And with this, I would like to thank everybody for joining us for this presentation.
Wonderful stuff, everybody. And imagining like the huge applause around the world. So to help talk about this work, as mentioned, we invited our panel, our Y panel of specialists from our partner network, and really excited to just get some reflections from everybody. Hopefully you guys are getting your cameras on and microphones on, and we can spotlight you and bring everybody up just to talk about it. But sort of be nice to hear from you. This work is about scale, and it's about this kind of, if like, bottleneck that AI's had with labeling. I wondered if anybody wanted to jump in and just talk about what the implications are really for having this capacity, this capability.
I'll jump in if I may, James. I just want to say what fantastic work the team has done on this particularly challenging problem. You know, this is very complex data that they're looking to teach the algorithm to learn about and to understand without any guidance. And I think, particularly in the context of equality and this global kind of north-south divide, AI has been talked a lot about. There's been a lot of talk about how AI has kind of could increase inequality, and you know, you can see that with the labels here, right? The countries which are able to invest in labeling the crops can perhaps get most out of the data. But this approach really allows any country to learn about their agriculture and to dig into the data in a completely agnostic way. They don't need to invest all that money up front, and I think that's a wonderful tool to be able to share with the world and with researchers who can now kind of build on that. So yeah, and I'm really excited by that.
Michael, that was your voice doing the intro at the beginning. This is your area of expertise. When you see tools like this, what does it mean for your work?
Yeah, well, first of all, I feel like I'm one of the old school guys now, who actually spent almost an entire career on exactly going out into the field, looking for the labels, work with crop models and see how you can actually synthesize this information between remote sensing with crop models. Never really properly worked. And this gives us really a new glimpse on how you could actually do things differently, and basically turn the entire thing upside down, simply because we are entering a new era of, first of all, what the team really did, and this is really to be applauded, is as was mentioned already, this data preparation work that actually makes then also the data available more equitable to the global south. But then of course also the temporal aspect, where we can now look very fast at change detection of the patterns that were detected, and this gives us absolutely new capabilities. And of course, currently we are not looking directly at an application, but very quickly you can actually think up and construct applications, starting from crop identification and even crop rotation identification, all the way to early warning systems of crop state, which for the World Food Programme is absolutely essential. Over.
Thanks, Michael. So Chetty and Sumak, you're machine learning people. When you see this sort of kind of engineering the team have done, why is that exciting for you?
Chetty, you want to go? Or?
No, go for it, Sumit. Please.
It's hard to do justice to the amount of work that has been done, and kind of, we've been following this through, and what the things that be unsaid. The tools that were developed for this, to create this data, the volume of data that, they're talking about, manage it, and to do unsupervised learning in this sense. And they've created something called the array and so on for the, Google Cloud Platform. And I guess Massey is going to talk about it more. The amount of contribution that has just come out of this short kind of a project, and kind of spurs on a lot of the machine learning, kind of advances the field very, very quickly. And like any good research, this also spawns even better work. Like I think Raul was explaining, we look at, time-lapse, time series, the delta, how crops are changing, seasonality, and so on, how to understand that better, in short time, longer term changes, crop rotations, etc. And to have algorithms do that unsupervised, this is fantastic. And what's to come.
Thanks, Sumak. Chetty.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, first of all, I would like to congratulate the team for the work. And again, as Michael said, in fact, I remember 10 years ago when I started as a researcher at INRIA, one of the first projects we had was to go and prepare a few questionnaires to some of the farmers in Lorraine, which is a region in northeastern France. And the idea was to get the occupation of, of the land, and understand basically how how they did their crop rotation. So it's quite incredible to see after 10 years how we went from, questionnaires now to have, satellite images that are being analyzed by a neural network, and be able, in fact, without even labeling, so without even that kind of human expertise that can also introduce some errors, be able, in fact, to get meaningful knowledge and insights about it. So I'm really excited, because this also opens up, a few interesting axes, like, real-time detection, having some better understanding of how the crops rotate. And the interesting thing for a person also coming like me from the Middle East is also to see how this can be applied, for instance, for farmers in, the Nile River, like in the valleys around in Ethiopia, and in really interesting places where you really would really have a good edge if you could get this kind of knowledge and this kind of insight directly. So imagine if this kind of, algorithm can be, generated, and then you send the information directly to the farmers through the smartphones or through the phones directly. That would be incredible. So yeah, kudos for you guys. It was a really interesting project.
Sarah, you work at the Satellite Applications Catapult, so your specialism is the so what, like how do these things get applied? So when you were looking at this work, it'd be great to sort of get your sense of what it unlocks in terms of applications downstream.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The kind of interlock between sort of AI and machine learning and the more traditional sort of Earth observation side of things, it's been really exciting over the last few years. And this kind of work that's been happening here, especially with sort of embedding and unsupervised classification, there are lots of instances in which projects are there and there's the need for a certain application, such as this example of food security or food insecurity, and Earth observation data just can't be applied due to the lack of that training data. So having this unsupervised approach brings a whole lot of opportunities to certain communities, certain countries where that training data is certainly currently missing. And then as well as that, from kind of a broader perspective, it's sort of, this is an example of one particular application on one particular type of data. So looking at agriculture with Sentinel-2, but it sort of gets you thinking, well, moving on, how do we move to different sensors, and as well a whole host of different applications which this could be applied to as well. So it's a really important technology which is being unlocked here, which can go a lot broader as it continues to develop.
Thank you, Sarah, and thanks for our panel. I can sort of sense the conversation starting to sort of go to exciting places, and